Hello there and welcome to my little arty corner here on YouTube. My name's Angela Porter, and I'm best known for my adult colouring books. I'd like to say a huge thank you to start off to everybody who's subscribed. I think I've made it to just over 950 subscribers, which to me is absolutely astounding and amazing. And I'd like to thank you very much for making that happen. And a big welcome to all the new subscribers. Not that I don't welcome the old ones, but it's always nice to say hello to the new ones as well. Thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed and you like what I'm doing, please click that button. It's completely free. It doesn't cost you a penny. It will never cost you a penny to subscribe to a channel. It's the equivalent of Facebook's follow, and same on Twitter, you know, just saying that you like something. And it does make a big difference because it helps YouTube then to, or it suggests to YouTube that other people might like the video and share it and so on. And so that helps hugely, I guess. Not that I'm hugely invested in a huge number of followers, but it's nice to get what I do out to people who might find it useful, helpful, inspiring, encouraging, and to get more people to be creative, even if this isn't meant for you. If it inspires you, that's brilliant. So what you can see here is what was in my last video. I'd started doing a colouring page. I didn't do any work on it yesterday. But before I do that, I want to show you something from a couple of videos ago, which is where I was playing around with no line or no black line drawing, just blocks of colour and then monochrome kinds of colour on the top of it. I did some work for a little while yesterday, and this is what I have. You won't see it all because I haven't got it set up. Oh, yeah, you can. Hang on. Come on, come on. Down a bit, down a bit, down a bit, down a bit, down a bit. There we go. It's just about it all. And I've added some more patterns to sections. I wasn't too keen on it yesterday. When I looked at it, I thought, oh, what have I done? But now coming back after a night's sleep and fresh eyes, and I think, actually, some of these bits are really nice. I like this one here. A bit clunky, clumsy with some of the lines, but, you know, hey-ho. I did use some different pink pens and so on. You may not be able to see here, but there's very subtle sort of like what appears to be a slightly purple line in between the white ones. It's more visible at different angles, perhaps there. And I used different blues. Like here I used a Jelly Roll Moonlight Pale Blue for the outlines of these circles, and then the blue Zig Writer for the other bits. And I have to tell you, after putting in up here Tripoli, I finally worked out how I can make it work, and I will share that with you, maybe even in this video, who knows, because I just thought this just makes sense. This is how I need to do this. So I'll show you. So I've had a lot of fun. I've used things like souffle pens here, along with the fine liners, and even, you might have caught a hint of sparkle here. I put some sparkly pale blue. It's the Jelly Roll Starlight pen, and it's the pale blue glittery one. And I put some gold in this one here, because I can't resist sparkle. It has to be said, I cannot resist sparkle. So I haven't finished it. I'm still having fun with it. This was interesting. I still haven't worked out if I want to add any more colour or pattern or anything to it. This one perhaps isn't quite finished, or perhaps it is. Perhaps that's enough. That one was fun, putting these bits in and so on. So I've enjoyed doing that, and it is just for fun and just to see what will happen and getting me used to this idea of no line colouring. Okay, so I'm going to draw another panel with you because I need to get all of this done today, and I'm not quite sure how long each one's going to take me, but I'm going to start here. My first job is just to open my book of inspiration at some kind of random page. I am flicking through it until I find one where I go, oh, that'll be fun. This will be fun. And I'm going to tie in these with similar kinds of shapes, perhaps similar kinds of motifs and patterns, and we'll just see what happens. Okie dokes. Right, I've seen what I'm going to do, I think. So I am going to create with some overlapping kinds of oval shapes that I'm going to overlap in a slightly different way. So I've got more than one at the top, like this. I'm creating a space here. I want a space so I can show you, hopefully, how I've worked out how to do that Tripoli pattern. So this is familiar. Sort of a circle within a circle. And again, I'm going to just thicken my lines a little bit. My hand and eye coordination isn't brilliant yet this morning, but it's a good reason for me to do this as well. Yesterday was a funny day for me in many ways. But, you know, today's another day. I ended up drawing mandalas digitally. Well, a mandala. And I ended up back in bed just after lunchtime. Not that I had lunch, mind you. Well, I did have lunch. A very late lunch. As I baked bread. And I waited until that was cooked before I say late lunch, it was late breakfast, early lunch. And was experimenting with the bread mixture, which is always a very dodgy thing to do because I'm quite happy to play around with flavours and ingredients on more savoury dishes. That's not a problem generally. But with bread and baking, I will substitute similar kinds of ingredients or add to things where I know it'll work. You know, so changing spices, flavourings, you know, things like that. But with bread, it's almost like, nope, if I mess around with that, it's just not going to work. And but with this one, it was a simple mess around, is that I used about a quarter of wholemeal flour, bread flour, mixed with white bread flour for a recipe that uses completely white flour, and didn't know how it was going to work. I put some extra liquid in because wholemeal flour is more absorbent, and it worked out. It actually worked. A bit too much liquid perhaps because the bread was quite moist, which is fine because it keeps for a week or more, and it will dry out. You know, it will slowly dry out. Yes, fresh bread that keeps for a week or more. It's because it's got egg and butter and milk in. And it's extremely springy, bouncy. It's Japanese milk bread, you know, and it wiggles. Well, it wiggled when it came out of the tin. It doesn't wiggle now that it's cooled down, but it was very wiggly. So there we are. So this is my first pattern. It's rather delicious as well, so it'll be lovely. Okay, this Tripoli thing, I'm going to put some here. So watch. I'm going to choose a centre for my Tripoli, and I'm going to start here, and I'm going to draw my first triangle in. Now, I am then going to go directly opposite it and draw another triangle in. Okay, so I've got the top and the bottom triangles, and that means then it's going to be that much easier for me to keep track of how I'm arranging 6 of these slices of pie together. And then if I go here, I'm going to add a triangle there, and I want one opposite. Well, this one's a bit of a weird shape because I've come to the edge, but I've still got these areas where I can divide them almost equally. Precisely equally doesn't matter. And I've got another one. So if I take this one here, I can't draw one there, but I know I need one to fit there and one to fit there. And then this one will have one going that way. It's a very strange shape, but we'll manage there, fit it in. This one, I'm going to just go, yeah, that one would go there, that one would go there. We'd have one here that would go there, there. There would be a tiny little one there, so I'm just going to pop that one in. But that trick of putting that one in the opposite and then splitting the two sides up worked for me until I get to these awkward spots. But that's where awkward spotology comes in. But that actually worked for me on that other sheet. I think it works for perhaps more even spaces, I don't know. Actually, it worked there for in the most part. It's just around the edges where things get a bit weird. But I'm happy for things to get a bit weird around the edges because it helps with that sense of volume, that there's more to the space than just being flat. Okay, so that was fun. Quite a nice little area for people to colour in. And I won't put lines in between these. There's an imaginary line between them by the way the pattern makes things. Okay, here next, I do want to add something a bit different. And I think I'm going to do it because I'm going to add another one of these here. Like so. And I am using a finer pen here to put these inner lines in on these ones today. Didn't do that yesterday. I think I used the same line thickness. So these essentially are like these, but just a bit different. So I've got a nice chain of 5 as well, which suits my need for things that are odd numbers. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create some piles of almost like stones or flat sheets of stone. It's kind of like the rock formations you get in deserts and other places where rocks have been eroded in an unusual kind of way. Well, that one's got quite a dome top on that one, but it'll work. And these are quite fun to include in. And you create really interesting shaped gaps as well in the drawing. And every now and again, I'm going to pop something in that is a little bit rounded and start to balance some others on the top that may or may not be entirely look like they should balance, but they eventually will. And I'm just going to widen these out again, because I will put something on the top. I've left a gap at the top, so that's quite fun. Now the trick on the next one is, if they overlap, is not to have these lines joining. It'll make sense as I draw, I'm sure. So I'm going to start with a thinner platform here, bottom section, and then the next one I'm going to make a little bit, well, the same kind of narrowness, but I'm having them stepping off this side so that I'm less likely to have them connecting on the other side. That's got a bow in it, and that's fine because I can work with that. And it's where I can pop in one of these more rounded pebbles. Perhaps this one is one where I say pebbles, where the top slipped and this one's supporting it, which would make sense in a kind of weird way. Perhaps they find gravity finally manages to assert itself. Probably not. I mean, but it's an imaginary drawing, so it doesn't have to obey completely the rules of, physics, the laws of physics. Just like this one here, and let's have another bit on the top. So this here looks a bit awkward, so I'll just stuff another little pebble in there, as if that's supporting the part there. And then perhaps we'll have this one just touching there, perhaps there, and perhaps one here just to even it up at the top. These make me very happy. I like things like this. So of course you can't have me without a set of, odd numbers for some reason. It's just because it feels right to me more than anything else. I had some really awful dreams last night as well. Very uncomfortable ones. I'm not going to share them. But I woke up in a bit of a tiz this morning, so there we've got a rounded pebble there, or piece of rock or whatever, helping to support that end, which is fine. It makes an interesting kind of pattern there, I suppose. And as I'm going along this, I'm getting into this a bit more now and beginning to add some variations here. This one's going to have definitely going to have something on the top here. I think I'm going to call that one probably finished, maybe. I'll see how it goes once I get to the top, because this particular design does have an orientation, I think. Though it could, depends what I do at the top here. It could work in other directions, but I don't think so. This one would work in any direction you want it to, really. All right, so I'm going to add on this side a couple more of these to tie everything in together. Now that one has slipped outside of the line a bit there, but I think I'll be okay with that. I often say lines are more of a guide for me than they are a strict, you must do this, or you must stay inside this. I try to, especially when things like this are meant for things. I'm using that word things a lot. Again, my brain isn't in gear today. Especially when I'm sort of like designing these, they can be used as card toppers. If you're making your own greetings card, they can go on the top of a greetings card or as a postcard. So let's have a look here. I'm going to start with, so I've got, imagine that triangle point is over there somewhere. So I am going to just go like this. That'll be fine for these. This one, that's my other little triangle there. So I'm going to have this split roughly into two. And this side then, again, with a strange shape, but it works. Okay, and this one here, there would be two in this part to complete that circle. Let's have a look. I think I've got that one a bit wrong. I've lost the plot with this one. I think the shape that I'm working with here is so awkward that I'm just going to have to make the best of it. And just fill it in with triangles. It works. It looks like fractured rock, doesn't it, a bit? Or a natural rock, breccia, which is you've got a very fine sort of clay rock, a rock made out of clay or silt, holding together lots of broken pieces of rock that have sharp edges, different to conglomerates. Conglomerates have got rounded pebbles and pieces of rock in them. So it's a bit like that, but a bit more organised and orderly. Okay, I do want some stuff growing. So the easiest way to have stuff growing is to put leafy shapes and collections of leafy shapes. So here I'm using these kinds of U shapes. And I'll do the same over here because it will tie the sides together. Welcome to my alien garden, I think. And then we can have some that grow perhaps in a different direction. So I'm kind of creating them so they kind of fan out. It's not an essential fan shape, but you know what I mean. They're wider at the top than the bottom. I'm going to close that little gap there. And with this one, I'll start along the edge, and then if you make them wider at the top than the bottom, they naturally fan out without having to orchestrate it. Unless you wish to, you can always draw pencil lines in. Do have the feeling for one, perhaps another set of these here. I took a moment to think because I wanted the ones on top of this one to go in a different direction and here, so it was picking where I put the central one, which was here. So that makes quite a nice top there, like this one. So that's quite nice. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. I've run out of inspiration on the page I'm open to, so I'm just going to open to another page that's full of seed pods. I don't really want seed pods. I'm going to look for some flowers. Though I could do flowers off the top of my head, but it's nice to use things that are perhaps a little bit, I say different. This one isn't really going to be different, but I want things that perhaps would be different in terms of how I'd normally draw a flower, and this one I think would fit the bill quite nicely. And here I am going to stop at the line with this one, because if I allowed it to flow outside the line, it would flow out quite a long way. Making them nice and big as well. Basically because there's plenty of space then for people to play around with colour and pattern themselves if they wish. So that's quite nice. Those are actually really quite nice. And I'll do some over here as well. So the petals on them don't have to be perfectly symmetrical. These ones are ones where it's just, let's draw them and see what happens. Again, I'm stopping where that line is so that we have this spilling over, as it were. So I would like another one here, and I'm going to pop it right in this corner. It's probably a daft thing to do, but I think it'll be all right because we'll make it work, like so. And then while I'm at it, I'm going to draw some of these lines in so that we finish off where these flowers are. I'm going to leave the rest of the line open so I've got options about how I fill that space in. The pencil line is enough. So that's already starting to give that feeling like this is almost like a photograph, a snapshot of something strange and wonderful. Do think I might need one. Let me just pop one here, because I've got that gap here, and I just think that would be quite nice to be filled that way. That works quite nicely. I was going to put something on the tops of these, and I think with this one I could do something here, is that I think I might have a series of rocks that balance, perhaps. Just because I can. And perhaps on this one I could have something, perhaps a triangular kind of shape to tie that together with the triangular patterns, perhaps. And then if I have one balancing on its point, that makes something that looks quite interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how people add colour to this. My mind's ticking over it. Then I've got these little gaps here. And I could leave them as they are, which would be quite nice actually in some ways. Or I could put some things in there. That perhaps suggest seeds or spores maybe, or strange little bubbles. They say nature abhors a vacuum, but it seems that Angela, i.e. me, abhors a blank white space. I don't really, but I do know there's a large number of my, I hate the word fans, but people who like my colouring books do enjoy the ones where there's very little white space and there's plenty of pattern and things to colour in, and the permission that imaginary landscapes and so on like this give you to use colour. You can just let go of any preconceptions of what things should be or what they could be. So I added a little collection of them down here just to fill that little gap in. I'm going to put a couple in here. I'm not going to fill these gaps in entirely, but I just feel they need something there. And then I'm going to draw these lines in just in case. There we go. So there's that one. Now I haven't done any line thickening here on this one yet, on these, so I'm going to very quickly do some. So you get the full sort of like impact of that. It's subtle, but it makes such a difference, I think. In terms of just bringing things, I suppose, to life, or just giving that sense of volume and layering. And it helps as well, in my mind at least. I don't know whether it works the same way for other people, but it helps to differentiate between different individual motifs that make up the whole image. Okay, these could do with some as well. I'm just looking at the lines or the sides that would be towards the bottom. And some you might decide to do right the way round, the ones in the middle particularly, because they can be a bit awkward. Well, which side do I do it? Do both? Or which one makes the most sense to you? If you compare those to these, they do have a bit more feeling of that kind of dimensionality, volume, that they're not just flat, just by doing something simple like this. Okay, let's do these ones. Trying to remember not to put my hand into the ink as I do this, because it does take a little while to dry on the paper I'm using. This paper is the Clairefontaine paint on paper. It's mixed media paper. It's very white. It has got a texture, and it can wear my nibs down quite quickly, but a lot of time I'm quite happy for that. You know, I wreck nibs at a fast rate of knots anyway, so I just accept it really for what it is. So to this one, I'm just putting some extra weight to the left. I'm not going to go underneath the bottom of all of these, but I am extending that weight a little bit along the left, as it were, or along the bottom, but not all the way along, just enough to separate these and perhaps give them some volume and form. So there, perhaps I can have some. Concentrating towards the left, as if that's where some shadow is. That one definitely have a long area of shadow, as can this. Now if I was doing this for me, I'd be adding fine lines in to add some shadow and texture, but this isn't for me, and it's for colouring, so I'm leaving the shapes that I've drawn pretty much open, and then so people don't have to worry about getting between the fine lines. I always add colour, a sample of colour to this, to each of my colouring templates that I gift to the group when I share them on social media. Not the plain colouring page, but the one that I've added colour to. I partly colour, so I share that on social media, not the uncoloured one. The uncoloured one is just for the members of the group. That's the deal with them, I suppose. There we go. So that's instantly made an impact. Cheers. You know, we've got things popping. These ones, I think I'll leave. No, perhaps not. Again, to the left and the bottom, because it won't take me long to do. It just defines them that little bit more. Go. I'm not going to bother with the inner circles there, but I just think that works. That one, I'm quite happy with that one as well, and I think it works nicely with the one on the other side. What do you think? I do think they do go together, don't they? I think so. Yeah, I'm quite happy. I was thinking about doing something inside these, perhaps putting a border inside, but I think they'll be fine as they are mostly. I think so. sometimes it's nice to have those at bigger opener areas to colour in. Although I could put some lines coming down to separate some of these sort of petals. Do I want to do that? No, I think I'm going to leave that exactly as it is. I'm going to call that one done. Now I'm going to spend some time doing the other two, so I will post an image of the completed sheet with some colour in later on today when I post everything. And of course the uncoloured template will be available in the Angela Porter's Colouring Book Fans Facebook group. I'll put a link in the description. Completely free to join. Templates completely free. I gift them as a way of saying thank you, but also during these very unsettled times, because even though, you know, people are learning to live with COVID, which is a horrible phrase, there's still a lot, the world has changed and there's still a lot of uncertainty and change and unease in the world. And so it's to give people a break from all of that, because colouring is fantastic. Art, creativity of any kind is brilliant for losing yourself in. So I'm just going to say thank you for joining me. Please look after yourselves. I'll see you again soon and find time to be creative. Bye-bye for now. Bye.